Coaching is another transformative process of guiding and enabling change within a coachee for a positive outcomes. Neuroscience is a study of the brain and the nervous system, how the system functions psychologically to transform sensory stimuli into output, actions, and or reactions. Coupling these two provides a deep impact, emphasis of self-awareness about how one's brain is wired to process information, learn, and create habits, while simultaneously using that awareness to dismantle self-limiting beliefs, doubts, anxiety, narrow perspective, and biases. So how can leaders and coaches can get the benefit by applying neuroscience for their coaching process? A very warm welcome to the show, Season 4 of EI Cafe with Azim. I'm your host, Azim Sahil, a human capital specialist, a legacy display facilitator, ICF certified coach, and an emotionally intelligent practitioner. Here we are again, another interesting episode, a 30 minutes of valuable learning. Just to remind you that inspiring people made more stronger with our exclusive knowledge partner, Bristol Institute, affiliated to the UK, University of the West of England, ranked 21 in UK and the highest ranked UK university in Sri Lanka. For more information, please do check into the podcast note. In today's episode, we are going to talk about practical application of neuroscience for coaching. To discuss this, I have one of my good colleagues all the way from UK. Let me introduce her. For more than 20 years, she has worked with coaches, trainers, and HR professionals to increase their results through using neuroscience in their work. As co-founder of Mybrain International and profiling instrument Mind, M-I-N-D, she provides accredited tools and resources for the appliances of neuroscience and is author of the best-selling book, Stuck, Brain Smart Insights for Coaches. She is passionate about helping people to embrace their uniqueness by making friends with their brains. Really interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, let me welcome Gill Mckay, speaker, author, applied neuroscience coach, and co-founder of Mybrain International. Gill, a very warm welcome to the cafe.
That is fantastic. What a lovely welcome. I'm delighted to be here, Azim. Thank you so much for this. It's and season 4, congratulations on everything you're sharing with your audience.
Thank you very much for that. And my humble gratitude to you spending your valuable time with me to inspire people in my cafe, which is a great honor for me as well, Jill. So Jill, you heard the introduction, what it's about, and this is one of your favorite area we are going to talk about. The topic is practical application of neuroscience in coaching, right? Before we get there, let me ask you with this. What is your purpose in your business?
Oh my goodness. You know, all that first sentence you've just said is all of my favorite things to talk about, my favorite topics. So I am all about helping people to embrace what makes them unique, to really embrace their uniqueness, enjoy what it is that makes them special. You know, we are not carbon copies of each other. We're all different. We've got different brains. Thank goodness we've got different brain cells. We've got different genetics. We've got different experiences, and we've got different imaginations. And isn't that wonderful?
Absolutely.
So my purpose is to help people step into, I guess, the best versions of themselves, and you said it before, to make friends with their brains. And what I do is I give them a little peek inside their brains to give them a language for their strengths, for their passions, and really what makes them tick. And it's all about the beauty of that self-awareness that can give them. And beyond themselves, if we can understand that each other, we're all unique, we're all different, it's also about helping to build a respect of one another so that we can work more collaboratively, we can really enjoy that diversity of working together. So it's all about respect and collaboration. And I always say that I'm on a mission to get everybody to fall in love with their brain and become fascinated with what it can do for you and how you can live your best life.
Absolutely. I'm vouching for that because, in my secondary school, I failed science and I hate science, but you never know that it brings a lot of enthusiasm, curiosity when you talk about brain. Now for me, I love talking about it because after getting to this emotional intelligence, I learned how people can really transform when they really master their mind, fall in love with their brain. As you said, it's really amazing, Jill. Thank you very much for
It
sharing
really
that.
is. And it's really important what you say there about, we come out of school where we really learn to pass an exam it has to be a limited curriculum. And yet isn't the joy of learning that we explore and we discover later when we've got a different context? Who you wouldn't have thought as a young boy that you'd be, wow, I'm enjoying studying the brain. But as you've evolved and you've become really motivated in different arenas, you're opening up to new avenues. It's really wonderful and encouraging and motivating.
Absolutely. So Jill, my next question, like you don't told about the purpose. Now, where did this purpose come from?
Yeah, so I'm going way back to childhood as well as you going back to your science lessons. So it's a bit of a grand statement or a dramatic statement, but I was born different, or rather, importantly, I felt different. So I was born with what was considered many years ago when I was young as quite a serious heart complaint. So I had a serious cardiac condition, and my parents discovered it when I was 2, and I felt different to all of my peer group, to my friends. In those days, we know so much more nowadays than we did way back in the 90s. I'll give you a clue, the 1960s. Yeah, it's a long time ago. We know so much more today. But I was on half-day schooling for a year. I was very skinny. I had blue nails. I had blue lips. I was perfectly strong. I was academically as good as my friends. I could do the gym classes, but the teachers didn't want me to, the doctors didn't want me to. Nowadays, we know that's a myth. Everything would have been fine. But I felt different to my peer group because I was different. I looked different because I was so small, but also I just felt I didn't belong and I didn't fit in. Now, where I was hugely fortunate was that I had, without knowing the language then, 2 of the most emotionally intelligent parents around. They were both doctors, so maybe there was something intuitive around it, but Daniel Goleman hadn't put the word out there for us all at that stage. But they brought me up to embrace who I was and to really step into the power of my difference and to understand that, hey, this is me. I may have blue nails. I may have, I may have a smaller body. I may be on half-day schooling, but I can still be a good friend. I can still contribute. I can still be part of the gang. And then the joy was that I very fortunately was able to have a fabulous operation at the wonderful Great Ormond Street Hospital in London, the Children's Hospital. Again, I felt different because there was a fund in my local town to send me to Houston in America. But in the end, I was able to go to London. And what I discovered was, as I became more like my peer group, is actually I wanted to hang on to my difference. Thank you to my parents for bringing me up in the way that, hey, you are you and just be you, because that's your place in the world. And I think I always knew, even from being young, after my operation, which was when I was 12, I always knew I wanted to work with others in some guise. I know many of us know we want to be in the helping profession, but I entered the sort of personal development and training field, and that gave me my it shone a light on my purpose. And neuroscience has enabled that even more, to be able to work with people, to help them to understand the joy of being themselves and to get the best out of themselves.
Wow, Jill, that was an amazing journey, I believe. Your purpose had led you to dismantle the whole beliefs. I think that's the power of neuroscience, I guess.
Absolutely. We certainly didn't know what we know now about neuroscience, and certainly my parents, they were doctors, but they weren't in that field. They wouldn't have known what we know today about neuroscience. But I think wonderfully they helped instill in me that belief. And the mind and the brain are inextricably linked. The brain gives us a physiological explanation for what goes on with our mindsets. And little did I know, when I was a youngster, feeling I didn't fit in, and then as I grew up, feeling actually I want to hang on to some of that. Little did I know the power and the strength of that awareness. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Jill, thank you for sharing for the whole process. I think the whole root cause is really definitive how we have come across. Next, I want to really bring this particular connection. I love emotional intelligence, and you love neuroscience. Let's connect this, right? Before we connect, for our benefit for our listeners, to make sure that what simple way you can say what is neuroscience and how it can help with emotional intelligence can be a great way to bring the clarification in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you introduced it beautifully at the beginning. At its core, neuroscience is the study of the physical brain and the nervous system. And let me give you a wonderful fact. We know that around 80%, that's 80, 4/5, it's a large number of our brain cells reside in the more ancient structures of the brain that are more responsible for our emotional alignment, our emotional regulation, our emotional well-being. Now, one of the things I believe that is my job around educating around neuroscience is to dispel some of the myths. We do not have an emotional brain, and a rational brain isn't like that. It's a lot more complex than that. But we are able to isolate some different regions of the brain, a mix of regions of the brain, where we know there are a huge amount that are responsible for our emotions and our feelings. They give rise to our emotional responses and reactions. So at its simplest, there are two areas of connection, I believe, that are hugely useful to practitioners in emotional intelligence. The one I've already touched upon, which is self-awareness. That the cornerstone of emotional intelligence. If we can start to learn about what are those facets that really make us tick as a human being, an individual human being, then that will really help to give us a language for our strength. And surely pivotal, you'll know this more than me, because you're an absolute expert in the EI field.
Thank you.
Is that prime relationship is with ourselves. And if you'd let me share, I use quite a lot of metaphor in my work, and I often, one of the metaphors I use here is the metaphor of a house. So if you consider that a house might have a number of rooms within it, some of the rooms might be painted different colors, and there are different pictures on the wall. So if we can learn about ourselves, if we think that our mind and our brain is like the rooms in the house, we can walk around the rooms, and maybe we've got a coach that can help us. They can walk around the rooms with us. So we can try to create some change and build some awareness, like changing new behaviors, trying new skills. So we may be moving the furniture around, or changing the paint color, moving the pictures around, or even choose to work in a different room every day. However, the house also has foundations where it's built into and rooted into the ground. And my work is all about helping to ensure that we as human beings have those solid foundations of self-awareness, so that clients understand at that brain level why changing the furniture around is a good idea, why they want to paint the color that day on the wall a different color. So wobbly foundations, if they're wobbling and they're not secure, that makes for a wobbly mind. And it's about having that connection between the awareness of who we are and that understanding the rooting and the anchoring of the brain. So neuroscience really helps us to look at the foundations of who we are. And that's, why do we sometimes feel fantastic and energized? And why do we sometimes feel, flat and drained? What is it that buzzes us up and empowers us? And when some things feel great and we're in flow, and yet we don't enjoy doing other things. Neuroscience helps to shine a light on that awareness of when we're operating at our best and when we could do with a bit of an energy boost.
Very interesting, Gill. I really like the connection you brought. And you said that foundation, co-element, bringing then self-awareness. And I love the metaphor you brought, that particular house element. Like you build the house, you have colorful, and you as a coach will take them through the whole and start moving the furniture. It's really amazing that you bring that metaphor. And that metaphor creates that my mind to bring that visual around. Is that involved in neuroscience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't even get me started on the senses, because we do all have, and actually some of it is learned as well, but we will have natural sensory channels that help us to engage with information in a different way. It appears like yourself, I'm also a very visual person. I love speaking in visual language. I enjoy metaphor. Yes. Not everyone is. Some people engage more with data and with facts, and for others they may engage more with more of a step-by-step
kinesthetic unfolding.
Yeah, or that real practical kinesthetic hand-on way of learning. The great teachers in the world know this, and they know that if they've got a classroom full of adults, or or a book club, or whoever they're dealing with, it's to be able to be agile in the phraseology and agile in the way that they offer the learning to the group that they're with. I find that for some people to connect to something as perceived, they perceive the brain and it's right to be complex. Sometimes using the metaphor helps to bring it to life and move it closer to something that we can use and something that can be understood. So it brings it into a context that's relevant for them.
I think the metaphor really expands the mind. That's what I feel, because when you give a metaphor, you quickly start picking it up. Okay, this relates to this. So, it's easy for people to connect as well. So,
yes.
Gill, my next line is coming more into a coaching context. Right?
Yes.
Me as a coach, I always believe that coaching is really important. You need to have a coach. In myself, I have a coach. When I go through certain, I just have a conversation with that person, try to expand my mind and find my path to self-discovery. Right? In this context, what are some of the benefits of neuroscience to coaches? How can they really apply this particular context? Because one of the misunderstanding most people have when you talk about neuroscience, more technical, more like really jargon context, more into scientific approach. But then again, I believe it's very simpler version of it. So again, what would be the benefit of neuroscience for coaches?
Yeah.
In application?
I agree with everything you say. I also have a coach. I think it keeps us sharp and it keeps us authentic as well as coaches ourselves. I completely agree with that. And yes, I do agree with you as well that many people think this is too complicated, or alternatively, it's fashionable. And because it's fashionable, there must be, and they're right, a lot of mythology around it. You know, there is a lot of nonsense talked about neuroscience. And yet we're at this wonderful stage in the world of science at the moment where, due to technology, the technological revolution, we can take the outputs of research from fully functional human beings, rather than just what latterly happened many years ago, cutting up rats in labs, ooh, horrible, or looking at the what was happening in patients with neurodegenerative conditions. We're now able to move away just from the clinical setting into the business setting, but there certainly is the opportunity for misinterpretation, definitely, and for fashion to, you know, come to the fore. And one piece of research, somebody says, aha, the cure for Alzheimer's disease, the cure for getting clients. You know, it's a bit deeper than that. So I think that the benefits are several fold. I guess the first one is that you yourself will know in the coaching space that there are some clients who are suspicious of coaching. They think it's what I would describe as
lack
soft
of confidence.
and fluffy. Yeah, they don't want to reveal much of themselves. So for some people, having an evidence-based approach that sits behind the coaching process, that can actually add real value and validity for them to, and it helps them to open up. It helps them to afford the same credibility to coaching as they would to perhaps other business programs. And on the counter side of that, and I've already mentioned this a little bit in your last question, I think it also helps people when they understand that 80% of our neurons are in that more ancient part of the brain that's responsible for intuition and emotions. It almost gives them permission to start to open up about emotions. And that is such a liberating and genuine, authentic place to be. And it helps people to understand that whole emotional self-regulation element of emotional intelligence as well. You know, we do know from neuroscience that information streams into our nervous system and our brain, but it reaches those more ancient structures, those the structures that are more responsible for emotions, around 6 times faster than our more modern rational brain. So I think innately most of us know this as human beings, but if you get a sense of some sort of feeling or emotion, or, you know, the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, your brain and your body are giving you a message, and it pays to pay attention to that. And I think that knowing that and understanding that helps people to be able to connect perhaps more readily to the emotional information that's there, and to connect to more of that emotional self-regulation, to be able to sit with it, to be able to acknowledge it and discuss it. That can be hugely liberating for clients. And I think another benefit, and again, this is a big one, is that neuroscience validates that change is possible. It's not just about changing willpower, taking willpower and every day trying to exercise that willpower and change something and move out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
But if you practice again and again and again, and you've identified your triggers, and you've identified how you're going to reward yourself, and you've identified the change you're wanting to make, then at a physical level, at a neurological level, you are, in the most simple terms, you are rewiring yourself, and you're doing that yourself. And isn't that incredibly powerful? You know, people who have perhaps given up sugar, they've quit the sugar habit or the chocolate habit or the cigarettes or something, it's harder at first, but then it becomes easier, because what your brain is seeing is new routines, new practices that you're embedding, and eventually you're setting up neural pathways, and new neurons in your brain will get attracted to the I don't like sugar neural pathway rather than the I love chocolate neural pathway. It is harder at first, but that's a great benefit for if people know that I can take a choice and I can make a change. That's hugely powerful. So I think those are the top three benefits about people who are suspicious, and that the evidence helps to validate it. The fact that we all know that if we're making that change ourselves, and we change at a physical level, and also that whole area of emotional regulation, I think that's really powerful for people.
Absolutely. I think one of the most tough element is that change element to bring, because when you do coaching, we are looking about transformation, right?
Yes.
It's transformative change, where that, as you said, certain habits will become a challenge for those people to change, especially in performance, building up the performance in terms of in a corporate environment.
Yes.
I think I agree with you that I think neuroscience can help most of the coaches if they really look at it, how to really touch the where to touch in terms of having that conversation, which area of the brain we should really focus on the client, how we can really evolve the ideas around this. I think that this would be a fantastic a tool for coaches, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it adds a layer. It's neuroscience doesn't replace any of the the teaching that you and I have received from our various, when we initially trained, and as we have moved up our professional qualifications as well. It doesn't change any of those. It's just another layer. I guess like any like NLP or any other modality. I think what is hugely exciting about it is that our clients mostly are really excited by it because they're curious. I think you and I both know that if we're able to invoke a sense of curiosity with our clients, that's when the learning happens.
Absolutely.
And when people are in a curious and a learning zone, that's when they get their great transformations and their great discoveries. And neuroscience helps to keep that curiosity. I mean, after all, aren't we all at a basic level interested in what makes us tick, and what makes us unique, what makes us special as an individual, and our contribution, how we show up in the world.
Agreed. So Gill, my next question would be, any examples do you have of coaches using neuroscience in their work with your experience?
Oh yeah, absolutely, loads, and not just me. I have many peer groups and people who I know who are as passionate about neuroscience as myself, and also we run an applied neuroscience qualification. So many of our practitioners have come from really different angles, actually, which is really good to see. So obviously, what we've just talked about, that change, that habit change, most of our practitioners, many coaches will use it to help shine a light on how habits can be changed, and so that clients can understand that. Another really interesting area is motivation. There are many different parts of motivation. We know ourselves and with our clients, Azim, that if somebody isn't feeling that sense of mojo, it's really hard to create change. They've lost the energy around it. And what we've learned from neuroscience is that there are many areas that can help enhance motivation. One of which is a passion of yours, is sense of purpose. We know that when people are aligned and when we can help a client to identify their purpose, research tells us that physically we can actually add years to our life. I mean, it's just extraordinary when we have that sense of purpose and a sense of autonomy and a sense of learning. Those three combined, and there's some good research that sits behind us, really helps in that area of motivation. A really simple one is visualization. So sports psychologists use it all the time, but the really important thing, visualization is a mental rehearsal. It isn't about just visualizing running across the winning line, beating Mo Farah or beating Usain Bolt. It's actually visualizing the steps you take to get there, because that will build that slow neural change in your mind. But it is a rehearsal, because the brain can't tell the difference between real and imagined. So if you visualize in glorious technicolor and you visualize all those steps you take, then many of our coaches use that as a technique. I have one colleague who works in the weight loss arena. So he works in obesity. That is his passion. And he has used neuroscience to help clients understand where they're sabotaging their weight loss effort. It's really interesting. So he uses research from neuroscience to help his clients understand actually where they're getting in their own way, where that saboteur is on their shoulder, and how to then connect with their strengths to pull them away from that saboteur. Very interesting. And then we had one practitioner who was actually a neurobiologist.
Okay.
And she used so she knew more than me, much more than me, at a university. Wonderful application. She taught in medical schools, and she used some of our output in the coaching arena to help medical students learn about bedside manner. So how to engage with patients in a human, let's move back to emotional intelligence, in an emotionally intelligent way. So there are so many ways, we can use it with goaling and decisions, with negativity and turning the script. The brain wants to keep us safe, so we often want to stay in our comfort zone. There are so many different applications that of coaches using it. I know somebody who uses neuroscience working with deep trauma and depression as well. Clearly there's more training and expertise around that, but so many applications. I think we'd all find, no matter what whether we have a specific niche or whether we're broader and we see clients with a broad range of presenting issues, we could find that it helps. I'm increasingly working in the sobriety area, so I'm helping people to live an alcohol-free life, because I live in that was one of my choices, but I'm using neuroscience to help us get there, to understand not just cravings and addictions, but also understand the mindset of the new world that we will be moving into when we get to that alcohol-free arena. So I could talk about this for a long time. There are many applications there. Absolutely.
Wonderful to hear. Wonderful. These are really important elements, I always believe, because we are a human being. We always really get cornered to certain perspective. But if you see neuroscience, where are the things applied, I think you just roll out the whole list. I have a small clarification to make. What if in a case of a corporate context, a coach who's looking to transform a performance element of an employee, a leader, how does this involve? Because when you're having a conversation, there might be very we never coaches talk about negativity. We never go to that barriers and challenging environment. We always try to into a gaining area we put it. But in that context, how can neuroscience support us?
Yeah, well, I think in my experience, where I've both used it and other colleagues have used it in that leadership and corporate sense as well, is in that whole area of understanding difference, understanding my own style and understanding the impact on others. So in that whole area of high performing teams, when you're able to have a language for your own strengths and understand the different contributions that everyone in the team makes, so they're coming from their own uniqueness. We have a profiling tool that's based on neuroscience that helps give that sort of language. It's hugely powerful, actually, when leaders can really bring performance results much higher by ensuring that real inclusion and real diversity and leveraging strengths. It's a really big, powerful way to help performance, to move up the performance curve, if you like. The one process that can be changed is understanding that everybody in the team has a contribution to make. I always say that we recruit for strengths, but often we develop for gaps. And I think it's such a shame, because surely we should be developing even more in the strengths and using strengths in different contexts. So often we can help leaders from a neuroscientific perspective understand what motivates their team, where their team's strengths and real contributions are, and then do more of that.
Absolutely.
And if they've got a gap, find somebody else who's got a strength there. I think there's such an amazing corporate context there.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Jill, for sharing that. So, Jill, we have come to our end of our conversation. Last bit of it, it has been a quite amazing conversation, a lot of learnings, a lot of rich content. Before I let you go, I want something from you, Jill. I need a golden nugget for our listeners where they can look into neuroscience and start practicing this particular element. What would be that one?
So it's a simple one, but it's a very important one. If you can remember this, what is good for your body is good for your brain. So sleep, hydration, good nourishment, exercise, nature, they are our friends, not just for our bodies, but for our brains. So look after your body, look after your brain, and you will absolutely be looking after your thoughts, your mind, and your emotional intelligence.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jill, for that golden nugget. I think that's simple, but that's one thing we really forget. We forget for a good sleep, good health, good food, exercise. These are things we really forget. I think fantastic way to put it up. Thank you very much. So that's the time that we have, ladies and gentlemen. My key takeaway is listen and love your brain. That will lead to bring a better person, better version of you who can really show up to the whole world. And what is your key learning? I believe there are a lot of learnings today with Gill shared. So my gratitude to Gill Mckay, speaker, author, applied neuroscience coach, and co-founder of Mybrain International. You can get connected to her via her social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, and log on to www.mybrain.co.uk to explore more of her work stage. And she does a fantastic line of work, and she have a blog as well. You can really sign up for that to get more update after neuroscience as well. So Jill, once again, thank you very much for your valuable time spending in the cafe and inspiring people to live a meaningful life.
It was an absolute pleasure. I will come and have a coffee in your cafe anytime. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Jill.